Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. What a match we've just witnessed. Rafa Nadal exacts revenge over Novak Djokovic. As you can tell, my voice is almost gone because I just did 4.5 hours of the live commentary for the match. Thank you to everyone who joined. Really enjoyed it. It was great to have so many people on. What a match it was as well. Nadal gets revenge after beating Djokovic in 4 sets, 6-2, 4-6, 6-2, 7-6. And of course, a mirror image of how he lost last year to Novak Djokovic. Although there he took the first set and then lost the following three in the semi-finals of Roland Garros. And then the year before that, it was the final. And Nadal beat him in straight sets. So it was the evening time. Everyone was talking about, oh, the evening, that means an advantage for Djokovic, and everyone's talking about how the conditions are such a big factor in the matchup. And I did say in the preview, and I stick by it, that I don't think the conditions did have a massive part to play. If I'm being honest with you, I think on the clay, it's the clay at Roland Garros. On the main court, it's two guys who have played each other 58 times, on multiple surfaces. They've won against each other on multiple surfaces. It's going to be whoever plays the best tennis on the day. And it was Rafa Nadal who played the better tennis on the day. He was the underdog going into this. He was the player that a lot of people thought, oh, you know what? I don't know whether he's going to have enough because he just came through a 5-setter against Felix Auger-Aliassime. He'd been pretty cold going into the Novak Djokovic match, given that he didn't have a lot of match practice because of that injury. Whereas Novak, yes, he hadn't played much during the start of the year, of course, with the whole visa issue, but then he did manage to then play a lot of the clay court tournaments and then won Rome as well. And a lot of players that win Rome do tend to be pretty successful at Roland Garros. However, it just wasn't to be. Now, this wasn't, in my opinion, it probably won't be even in the top three matches, between top five, maybe even matches between the two, given that they played so many matches and so many incredible thrillers. But was it a classic match? Yes. Was it a classic Roland Garros match? Yes. Just because it's two goats, there were special moments throughout the whole match. Yes, it wasn't, I don't think, the best level from both players throughout the whole 4 sets. It ebbed and flowed, but it was a fantastic match to witness. It really was. And I have to say that, Novak Djokovic seemed to play some really good tennis at times, but he just always seemed to be one step behind when it came to the match, to be fair. He started every single set apart from the last set, actually, that fourth set, getting broken in his first service game. So already he was at a disadvantage. And then he had to recover, or try and recover anyway, like he did in that second set where he won at 6-4. And he was uncharacteristically hitting a lot of errors, especially on the backhand side, although that has happened in the tournament. I know I was watching and had been watching a lot of his matches and seeing the stats for it. And I think he's tried to go for more. I think physically, I don't think there's issues, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think there was. However, in this match towards the end, it looked like he might be struggling physically and tried to go for more on the ground stroke. So it was a really interesting match. Nadal seemed to be always one step ahead, just managing to read Djokovic really well as well in terms of what direction he'd go. Defensively, I thought Nadal was really good, really good. And normally you expect Djokovic to be the better defender potentially out of the two, and then Nadal the better aggressor on the clay, given that the forehand is such a weapon. But it wasn't actually. He was a better defender generally as well. He returned, at one point he was returning a lot better than Djokovic, but he ended up returning as well, if not better than Novak. We'll go through the stats in a second. And serving wise, he served at 71% first serves in, which is really impressive from Nadal as well. And the placement was, I think, the more impressive thing about it. I'll bring on the stats in a second as well. Before I do, though, remember to hit that like button, please, if you haven't done so already, and do subscribe if you're new. Also, if you want to support the channel even further, you can do so by hitting that join button to become a member. Thank you to our new members as well. We've had a few of them recently, so great to have you guys joining. If you're a podcast listener or watcher, do remember to also leave a rating or review or subscribe as well. I do appreciate it. So, the start of the match, I was just thinking, okay, Nadal most likely will start off quite strong as he did in the last year's semi-final. And then it's just a question of Djokovic adapting and then, warming into it. And then most likely he'll then have the momentum. And then really it's hard to see Djokovic kind of, backing down, if that makes sense. And it seemed to be going that way after Nadal took the first set. Now, the first set wasn't the best in terms of, I guess, in terms of the quality of it. And in fact, what we'll do is we'll go through each set, set by set. So when it's on 4 series, 12-6 for Nadal, which is really tidy, 8-9 for Novak. And what I'll do is actually we won't go through the set by set. We'll go through the match stats, and then I'll also go through the, I guess, patterns of play. So I think the first thing we'll do is go through patterns of play. So for me, Nadal, what he did really well was dictate with the forehand. Now, his foot movement around the backhand side and just around the court was really good. He didn't seem to have any issues in terms of, that foot issue that, of course, everyone's been talking about. It's highly documented, but he hasn't, from what I could see anyway, he didn't seem to have any issues with it. Now, the big thing is, I guess, is that if you look at it from a, take one step back and say, well, okay, his foot's not feeling or looking that bad. Is that just because, so is he perfectly fine? Not necessarily. Now, he could have had injections, cortisone injections, etc. He's towards the back end of his career. Those type of injections, they're not good longer term, but then he's not going to be playing for much longer by the sounds of it. So maybe he takes one of those for this specific match. Who knows? It's perfectly legal, of course. It's just, it's pain relief. So I don't know what the case is, but either way, he was moving fine. He was moving absolutely fine. He was moving really well. I thought better than he was against Felix for me. And it was great to see him moving around the way he was. And the movement made a big difference because defensively, he was, I thought, defending really well. What he was doing really well for me was a couple of things, Nadal. Now, the first thing was, I said in the preview, he needs to utilize going out wide on the due side on the serve. So going flat, hitting that flat serve out wide, which is something that he's definitely hitting better in the last few years. He's hit it really well in the last couple of years, especially. I didn't really have it in the lock. It used to be more of a swinging serve, even when he went out wide, and then it would go straight into the hitting zone of the righty on the forehand. Now he's able to hit the flatter serve out wide. And he had a lot of success with that serve, whether it was an ace or it was an unreturnable serve, or he'd go out wide and then he'd come and finish the point off of the net. That was a massive, massive, massive advantage, especially when he's hitting 71% of first serves in. He was able to utilize that serve and get a lot of free points on it. Now, that was a big, big plus from Rafa's point of view. The second thing as well that he was able to do, and you might think, actually, by the way, why is he utilizing that serve? Well, Djokovic being on the stretch on his forehand is probably not an ideal return for him. For him, the serve actually going down the tee from that due side, right, into the backhand is actually better because he may not go cross court, he may not even go down the line, but he will go down the middle with great depth and power, right? And it's a natural return for him, that backhand return. So Nadal tried to take it away from him at times, and it worked. A treat, it really did. The second thing he did was, for me, have a lot of success in the backhand to forehand exchanges. Now, his backhand, especially cross-court, was really potent, I thought. And what he would do is he would drive the backhand cross-court into Djokovic's forehand, and Djokovic, for the most part, would go forehand cross. And because Nadal's backhand mostly is actually pretty flat, it does mean that you're dragged out because he normally hits it flat at an angle. And at times he'd hit winners off it because it was just a really, really good backhand to hit. And he'd hit almost kind of behind Djokovic, as Djokovic would be in the backhand corner and he'd be able to catch him out. Or what he'd do is he'd go backhand cross and then Djokovic might try and kind of drag him out and he wouldn't do well enough. Then Nadal would end up hitting the backhand on the line as a winner. Interestingly, and again, I think the stats, we need to take with a pinch of salt because I think Djokovic does hit more backhand winners than Nadal. I know for a fact, even though I haven't seen the stats, that I would imagine he did looking at the match after just watching it now. But Nadal hit a lot less backhand errors than Djokovic. Now, that just shows how solid that wing is. And defensively, it was really good. And not just going cross court and driving it, but the slice especially. Now, he sliced really well on the backhand defensively. He read Djokovic's movement's great, like greatly, sorry, even. When Djokovic, had a short ball to pounce on, he normally, more often than not, would guess the right way, and then he'd make it really difficult for Djokovic. He'd go slice on the backhand side if it was to the backhand, really low over the net, and then it would be awkward for Djokovic. He made a lot of mistakes where he had easy putaways or perceived easy putaways. He'd then go wide into the net, he'd go long, and that's because people were thinking, oh, actually, Nadal's tried to hit a drop shot or tried to go long there, but he's just mishit it, or he hasn't hit it as he wanted to. No, he's done it on purpose. He's tried to make it awkward for Novak Djokovic, and it's worked. And it worked a great deal. It really did. So I think from that point of view, Rafael Nadal had a lot of success. He really did. And it was great to see. It really was. But yeah, so I think from that point of view, really good from Rafa Nadal for sure, and he'll be really happy. He'll be really happy with how he kind of performed. I think. In terms of, if we look at it from just I think if we also look at it from a drop shot point of view as well. So I thought, would Nadal have success with the drop shot, because Djokovic is so good at coming from the court? But what he did really well is push Novak back really far behind the baseline, hammering those forehands away. And what he was able to do was hit his corners and hit spots really nicely on the forehands, which was great. And that was fantastic to do. And I have to say that generally, it was amazing to see Nadal ripping the forehand and utilizing it particularly well. It really was. So that was great. Like, I was so happy to see that. And generally, from I guess, I don't know, from just a neutral point of view, Nadal was really crunching through the forehand, especially on a court and in conditions where it's supposed to be relatively cold. It's not supposed to be particularly good, for hitting winners or being aggressive. He actually was doing really well in those exchanges, and then pushing Djokovic back. Then he'd go drop shot, and more often than not, he'd get a lot of success on the drop shot. Also coming to the net as well. He'd hit a good approach, come to the net, and normally it'd be good enough. Sometimes Djokovic, or most of the time, Djokovic would make it pretty difficult for him and kind of go low over the net. But his hands at the net, Nadal, are more than good enough, I think, to do well at the net. And that's exactly what he was doing. So that was great to see. It really was. Really impressive from Nadal, I thought. And the third thing, I think, and for me, this is a big thing, is just managing the juice games. So he managed the juice games really well for 3 sets. The one set that he didn't was that second set where he lost 6-4. But for the most part, he managed to just either hold serve when he had break points down, or there was one set, which I think was the first set, he had like 6 or 7 breakpoint opportunities in one game, and he kept knocking on the door, and he just took it in the end. He just was relentless, and it was really good to see. And something I think that maybe he would have looked at in the past is that going backhand cross into the Djokovic backhand can be dangerous, right? Because a Djokovic backhand cross is so good. Like his two-hander is incredible, right? For the most part, it's like it's probably the best in the game. So Djokovic did hit some winners cross court off that exchange. He did. Not a huge amount, but he did hit some. However, Nadal, for the most part, kept it at bay. And the reason why is because he hit it with such great depth cross court. Djokovic would have to hit a backhand almost half volley at times. And that would mean either he'd go into the net, or it wouldn't be as deep or as potent as he'd expect or hope to try and then hurt the Nadal forehand. So then either that would set up a kind of a booming forehand on the line, or he would then whip it cross court again, but at a better angle. And sometimes he would just go at a more acute angle, less depth, and then re-drag Novak out. And that was, again, really good to see. It was Nadal almost that kind of near to his best on clay, right? And the other thing was, he did hit some double faults in really inopportune moments, but so did Novak as well to then get broken in the end. But he also managed to hit some great serves as well, especially like an ace down the tee on, I think it was the ad side, when he was breakpoint down. So generally, it was just really good to see Nadal kind of recover. Um, a lot of the times when he's in those tight juice games against Novak, he normally tends to lose them as of late anyway. So it's good to see him win a lot of the tight games, come through them. And the best thing I think for me was his resilience and his ability to come back. So he's 5-2 down in that fourth set, 5-2. He came back from 5-2 down to then take it to a tiebreaker and then win the tiebreaker. Not just win the tiebreaker, he was 6-1 up in the tiebreak. He ended up taking it 7-4 in the end. And I thought he did really well to just keep his cool after losing 3 match points. He managed to take it at the fourth time of asking, and that was to me was really good. And also saved set points in that set as well because Djokovic was serving for the set. Managed to save those set points and then come back and do really really well. Like he was serving at 5-4 for the set. And managed to break him, go 5-all, and then it was great to see. It really was from Rafa. Just the fight, the spirit. He's clearly fit enough that he's able to fight till the end. And it was a real accomplished display from Rafa Nadal, I have to say. For Novak Djokovic, I mean, how did he look? I mean, he made it really hard for himself in the first few games, and Nadal did return really well, I thought, for the most part, whether it was into corners or very deep down the middle, and then he'd give himself a chance. Sometimes he would actually return short, and I think Djokovic maybe let him off the hook a little bit at times, but it wasn't that. It was just the defensive work from Nadal and just being able to read where Djokovic was going to go with the approach or kind of the next one plus shot was just so good. And then there was a couple of incredible passes on the backhand from Nadal down the line, or cross court, or lobs, and Nadal just kind of he was able to almost read at one point. I'm not joking on commentary. I actually said, I think it was when he was a set and a double break up. I said it almost seems like Nadal knows exactly what Djokovic is going to do next. And I know they've played each other so many times, but then you'd think it'd be the other way around as well, right? But it wasn't. It wasn't. It was just in that case. And it was really interesting to see. It really was. So in the end, Novak, I think, just didn't serve well enough. At the first set, I think he served at 48% or something, 45%. Way too low, right? I mean, you're not going to win a set like that. He served really well for the whole tournament. I think he was serving around 70+%. In this match, he was around, and I might as well bring up the match stats actually whilst we're talking about it. He served around 68% in the end, but there were sets where he was serving nowhere near that. So 68% in the end is pretty good. But look at the first serve points one, 64%, 65%, there. And I think that shows how good both are returning. But the fact that Nadal was able to win, I guess so many of the first serve points, it's so similar there, right? That you have to imagine that Djokovic has a very, very slight advantage in return games normally because people perceive him as being the slightly better return. I think he's probably seen as the best return ever. On the clay, though, I don't think that's maybe the case. And I think that's just because of the slowness of the surface and also how well Nadal served on the day. But in addition to the fact that I think it being maybe in the evening, people were saying that, that's an advantage for Novak, but maybe it actually meant that it was a slower surface, more spin, and he doesn't really like the kick serve to the backhand. He doesn't. We saw him struggle with that serve against Alcaraz. So, yeah, it was an interesting one. It really was, and he clearly struggled to string together a lot of good service games. And the fact that he was down every single set apart from the last set, and the last set he then threw away a 5-2 lead, I think to me says that mentally he was a little bit off. The crowd was really behind Rafa. They were crowding him loads. They were cheering him loads, even. And there were kind of people commenting saying, "Oh, are they booing Novak?" Now, I didn't think they were booing Novak, but a lot of people thought that maybe that they were, and I was like, okay, well, if that's the case, that's not great because one, he's a goat, and they shouldn't be booing him anyway. Like, it's a bit ridiculous, isn't it, to be booing him? So look, I think at the end of the day, Nadal is rightfully so the person they're cheering for because he's won it 13 times. But at the same time, I think, you've got to be realistic and say, well, um, you know, uh, got to be realistic and say, well, Novak's still an incredible player, though. They should be giving him his props and not booing him anyway. So I think overall, look, mentally didn't really look there. Physically, he definitely struggled. I mean, he did show fight Novak. There were a lot of long games, There was one 15-minute game where he managed to hold after saving multiple break points. I was like, incredible. There's so many juice games, so many games that went beyond 5 minutes, so many tight games. And Nadal, to be fair, won the majority of them, which is why he came out on top. But it was really, I think, what broke Novak really was being 5-2 up and then Nadal coming back and taking it to a tiebreaker. And normally you'd back Novak to win the tiebreaker, but because Rafa was just so relentless in the way that he came back, I think mentally Djokovic was like, what has just happened? And Nadal just ran away with it in the tiebreaker. And you're just thinking, Djokovic is out of it. And he was hitting uncharacteristic unforced errors. He was going for it big on the forehand and backhand, trying to go down the line, low percentage shots, making errors. And you just think that's not Novak. So either he was, kind of fed up and started going for too much, or the crowd was getting on his nerves as well, or physically there's something wrong. Either way, Nadal just too strong in the end. So yeah, I mean, we can look at the stats then for the match as well. So you see that aces and double faults, first serve percentage, 71% for Nadal, 68% for Djokovic, 5 aces for Novak, 3 for Nadal, 4 double faults apiece. First serve points won, 65% for Nadal, 64% for Djokovic, 60% for Nadal in second serve, 42% for Djokovic. So a big difference in second serve points won. I thought Nadal did really well on the second serves, actually. Went to the body a lot. Actually, should mention on the ad side, he went to the body a lot on the first and second serve. Had a lot of success with that as well because Djokovic wasn't able to really hurt him for the most part. Eventually he started to then go around it and go into out with the forehand return, and he did then have success. Like he saved a match point with an into out forehand return winner on that side, but generally he wasn't really being too hurtful on the return. And then Nadal was doing really well on the 1+ shot to just then go into out with the forehand with the 1+. And obviously we know how good his serve 1+ plays can be, especially even on not just on clay but in general. And then if you look at break points converted, 41% for Nadal, 33% for Djokovic. Return points, look, so first and second serve return points won. Nadal edges him in both of those, 36% to 35% on first serve, 58% to 48% on second serve return as well. Winners to unforced error count, 48 winners for Djokovic, 53 unforced errors to 48 winners, 57 winners for Nadal to 43 unforced errors. A big difference, of course. Djokovic with just less winners to unforced errors, but Nadal with 14 more winners to unforced errors there. Net points won as well, 63% for Novak, 73% for Nadal. Interestingly, Novak came to the net 41 times, which is 11 more times than Nadal, but it didn't really seem that way. And that might just be because maybe he wasn't as successful, so you don't remember those points. But Nadal definitely, was proactive coming to the net at times. So was Novak. But I think maybe the drop shot at times didn't play at the right times, Novak, and then got caught out a little bit. But for the most part, I thought it was just a really tight match. And the scoreline maybe doesn't suggest that because it's not a 5-setter going to a tiebreaker, deciding championship tiebreaker. But it was a matter of a few points. And that's why if you look at the total points won, there's only an 18-point difference, which seems a lot. But over 4 sets, considering Rafa won it in 4, that's not a huge gap for me. So in the end, what a win for Nadal. He closes the head-to-head at, what is it now, 30-29, I think, after. So who knows? Maybe they'll meet another 2 times. And if Rafa, say, levels it at 30-all, they can have a kind of winner-takes-all 61st match maybe, or something like that. But yeah, incredible match, incredible watch. If you didn't watch it, I recommend, if you don't want to watch 4 hours and whatever it is, 21 minutes I think it was it 4 hours and 21? Let's see, actually 4 hours 16 minutes. If you don't want to watch 4 hours 16 minutes of the match, then watch the highlights at least. But some incredible points. It really, really was. And I think Djokovic, as I said, just uncharacteristic on the errors. Mentally, just not as strong as Nadal on the day, and definitely Nadal played better, I think, and managed the bigger points better. He really did. Was more clinical in those points, managed to kind of save a lot as well, and just in the end, too strong for Novak Djokovic. So Djokovic will be disappointed. He'll be dropping from number one, definitely after Roland Garros. So whether Zverev takes it on Medvedev, I think it depends. If Zverev wins Roland Garros, then he'll go to number one. If not, then Medvedev will. But Djokovic might potentially move down to not even just number two, but number three. So, yeah, very interesting to see how that goes as well. For Nadal, he marches on. He'll play Alexander Zverev in the semi-finals. Zverev upsetting Alcaraz in 4 sets, which was a real upset, I thought. Alcaraz getting broken in the first 2 sets. Both times he got broken, he tried to serve and volley, and it just wasn't the right opportunity to try and do it. So the first one was the second serve into the backhand, tried to serve and volley, not the right option. And yeah, he'll be disappointed with that. And then I think too many serves on the ad side into the backhand of Zverev. Like that's his best return. I'm not sure why he. I think eventually he kind of realised, but it was almost a bit too little, too late, and then lost a tiebreaker in the 4th set. So yeah, I think look, Zverev will be really happy with winning. Of course, Alcaraz will be disappointed, but Zverev will see this match and think, okay, you know what? I'm kind of happy with that. As in, I'm happy with the fact that I'm not playing because, or I'm happy with the fact basically that they had such a long match because that's going to help me going forward, right? That's what he'll be thinking. 9-7 in the tiebreaker though as well. Like Zverev, very solid there. Served really well, and I think the backhand was firing a lot. Forehand at times was quite good, although pushed it in at times as well. Alcaraz, a lot of errors, kind of similar to, I guess, with Novak, a lot of errors as well. Uncharacteristic errors from both. And then Zverev cashing in. So, yeah, it'll be Nadal Zverev in the semi-finals on the top half of the draw. And the bottom half, of course, we've got quarterfinals tomorrow. But yeah, thank you very much, guys. Really do appreciate it. Will Nadal win his 14th Grand Slam? What do you think? Sorry, his 14th Roland Garros and 22nd Grand Slam. Is he the favourite? Let me know what you guys thought of the match. Are you surprised? Are you not? Let me know your thoughts. Thanks very much, guys. Stay safe and well, and we'll see you tomorrow for some more live stream watch alongs.